Joining us, chief political reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and MS Now political contributor Greg Bluestein, co-anchor of the Washington Post newsletter Early Brief Dan Merica, and MS Now political analyst, and Undersecretary of State in the Obama administration, Rick Stengel. Greg, how is Ossoff playing in Georgia?
Well, right now, according to Republicans I speak with pretty much every day, they're no longer worried about, his victory. They're worried about the margin of his victory. They see Ossoff heading towards, he's the favorite in this race, which was nothing close to a given even a year and a half ago. This is a state that President Trump won by more than 100,000 votes back in 2024. So the fact that now Republicans are worried about the margin of his victory says a lot because, of course, it could affect the other Republicans up and down Georgia's ticket.
All right. Well, that is interesting in itself. They're worried about the margin. Greg, are they also now worried about what it could potentially do to the governor's race, or are they feeling like that's still a lock for Republicans?
Yeah, it's nothing even close to a lock. It is a neck-and-neck race in the governor's race between Keisha Lance Bottoms, the Democratic nominee, and Republican Rick Jackson, who is spending deep into his own fortune, more than $108 million and counting already. Polls show a neck-and-neck race, but there's a real debate going on in Republican circles in Georgia's, okay, if Jon Ossoff wins by 5 points, can Rick Jackson still win? If Jon Ossoff wins by 8 points, can Rick Jackson still win? And again, this is a debate we could not even imagine back in 2024 when the narrative around Jon Ossoff was that he was the most imperiled Democratic incumbent on the battleground map because he's the only Democratic incumbent in the Senate running in a state where Donald Trump won.
So explain why it's working for him right now, why everything changed.
Yeah, well, look, part of it is he made an effort throughout the 5+ years he's been in the U.S. Senate to reach out to Republicans, independent swing voters. That was the part of the coalition that helped him win back in that 2021 runoff that flipped control of the chamber. And of course, part of it is his ability to energize his base with exactly the clip we just saw in Columbus. That sort of bone-crushingly raw attacks on President Trump and really casting Mike Collins as Republican nominee as a proxy for Donald Trump is working with Democrats who are kind of tired of the same old with their party.
Okay, so Dan, it appears that at least one Democrat has learned how to turn the tables on Donald Trump, calling him corrupt, calling him weak, calling him a coward, linking him to his aide, Natalie, and I don't know if making it appear that they were having an affair was the intention, because what we're hearing from reporters like Maggie Haberman is that she's more of his security blanket. Maggie called her his binky. Here's what Ossoff told Jen Psaki when he tried to clarify it.
Well, I've heard this particular aide referred to as his security blanket. And I think we could say that about any number of the senior aides in the White House. They're not telling him what he needs to hear. They're telling him what he wants to hear. And the nation is at war, and we cannot afford that. We need a team in the White House. We need folks at the State Department, at the Defense Department, in the United States Congress who take their jobs seriously.
So is that it? Is he hitting what is the essential truth, as I said a moment ago, that Donald Trump now appears more weak today than he has in the past because of the polling, what he's doing, and the people he's surrounding himself with?
Yeah, I think it's maybe even more political than that for Ossoff. As Greg lays out, he's in a pretty good position when it comes to his race this year. I have a hard time looking at that speech, the speech that he gave yesterday with Mark Kelly, and not thinking about 2028 and the possible run for president. There are Democrats here in Washington and nationwide who think if Ossoff wins by those 5 to 8 points that Greg was raising, that he becomes the front runner for the Democratic nomination. And I think you're going to see a lot of folks who consider running for president starting to test out lines like Ossoff has been doing over the last few days. He has certainly gotten under the White House's skin, and it's pretty clear, according to people close to him, that was exactly what he wanted. And the White House, their response, where they just went all out at Ossoff, gave him exactly what he wanted. I have no doubt that this is probably huge for his fundraising. It raises his name ID. And also with Democrats right now, the best thing that you can do in a Democratic primary is draw the ire of Trump and the White House. And so whether this is about kind of the central reason that people are critical of Trump right now or not, it is certainly getting to something inside the Democratic electorate that if Ossoff is to run for president, he says he's not interested, if he is to run for president, that will be key to the 2028 primary, which will be chaotic, as I'm sure you know.
But again, things have changed, and I think this is what makes this so interesting, this moment, because in the past, Donald Trump has been able, when you draw his ire, he's been able to attack folks and diminish them and weaken them and defang them, as I said a moment ago, and it just doesn't appear to be working with Ossoff, like not getting under his skin at all, which is new.
Yeah, I'm always struck by the way that Ossoff speaks. He's very measured, quite calm. It's actually quite a departure from Donald Trump, who is often not that measured, uses a lot of rhetoric, and is often quite animated when he speaks. I wonder if that's part of it as well. You've seen other Democrats try this. Gavin Newsom is a great example, who's tried to embody the president's language, almost kind of adopting the way that the president speaks to attack him. That seems to have also gotten under the president's skin in a way. But there is something unique about Ossoff and the way that he speaks and the way that he goes after the president. Also, you'll note when they put this on social media, it was highly produced. It was multiple camera shots. It was at a big rally. That often speaks to somebody who is thinking about more than just necessarily a Senate race and is getting at someone who is wanting to tell a broader story about not just Georgia, but the nation.
Yeah, well, listen, though. I mean, they need a governor in that state as well for him to leave and exit and to run for president, because if it's a Republican governor, a Republican can appoint a Republican, Greg Bluestein, as you know quite well. So they would need to win both of those seats coming in November to ensure that he has real viability, or he won't damage the party if he does decide to run in 28. Rick, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Do you think Ossoff is hitting on something?
Yes, Katie. As you know, in Democratic politics, what often happens is it's the opposite of the old Republican Party, where they anointed someone to be their nominee. The Democratic nominee often comes out of nowhere. Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, first-term senator from Illinois named Barack Obama. And the things that Ossoff is saying about Trump, which I 100% agree with, have been said many times by many people, but for some reason he's breaking through. He's young, he's attractive, he's charismatic. One of the things we've seen in this primary era now recently with Democrats is Democrats like younger, more progressive candidates. That's who he is, and he's breaking through. I mean, if this were happening a year from now, after he won his election by 10 points in Georgia, I'd say, yes, he could be the nominee, but it is happening very early. And the only thing I'd add, ironically, and you were talking about Trump denigrating people. I mean, one of the other classic rules in politics is you don't punch down. Well, all Donald Trump does is punch down. But by punching down, he's also raising the profile of Jon Ossoff, which is not in Trump's interest.
So what do you expect, Rick, for other Democrats who might be looking to Jon Ossoff as an example, as a pathway for them to campaign and to try to attack the president?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. The person who will win the nomination for the Democrats is someone who is able to attack Donald Trump, attack his policies, attack the unconstitutionality of the government, of everything that he's done wrong for America, and do it in a way that breaks through. But it is also somebody who will offer solutions for that. I mean, right now, Jon Ossoff is not in the solution stage. He's doing well in part one, which is attacking Donald Trump. But I think whoever the nominee is will have to have solutions for these things, to say, like, it's as terrible as what Trump has done. We need to do better, and here's how. And that is the next step. But I do think people are learning from him. As Dan mentioned, he's very measured in his persona, which is interesting because his speech is not always so measured. That combination is pretty electric.
Yeah, it is interesting because if you just read the words, it comes off as much harsher or much more, much sharper than maybe the way he's saying it, because he's so measured. When you compare him and Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, I mean, a lot of what they say is not so dissimilar, but Gavin Newsom sounds like he is meeting Donald Trump in the basement in a different way than Jon Ossoff does. I mean, look at what Gavin Newsom tweeted, or his press office put out on X last night. It's an image of Donald Trump. You can see it right here. Low T, higher gas prices. So does this turn voters off? Does it excite them? How does this work? Do you need to couple it with the measured way that Ossoff speaks? Or what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I think that this primary, we're looking ahead to 2028 now, it's going to be done. It's going to be litigated over a number of very small issues. You're going to have a lot of Democrats who believe a lot of the same things. And so you're going to have voters who are having to pick through what they like about each candidate. And that's why that presentation really will matter. And so you're going to have people who like the way, the almost mocking nature that Governor Newsom has gone about it. And you might have some who like the more measured, kind of calm way that Ossoff speaks. You know, I talked to a lot of Democratic operatives over the last few days since Ossoff made his initial attack on the president. And there are some who are a little perplexed by what he is saying because he has cast such a measured way about him in the Senate. And they're wondering if this is all about stirring up enough interest or stirring up a momentary blip of interest and whether he can really sustain it. So I think there are some Democrats who are a little skeptical, Democratic operatives who have worked on presidential campaigns who are skeptical of this strategy. But I think it's very clear that Ossoff is hit on something here because of the White House response. And you're going to see this a lot over the next few years from Democrats who are testing out messages to see what works in what will be a really chaotic primary.
So